Today coming up, everything about compression, what it is, how it works, and when you should use it. Hey guys, welcome to the vlog. Welcome to my studio. It's Monday. Mondays are usually pure business days, taking care of all of the music business promotion kind of task that I just have to take care of as a music producer and DJ. On top of that, it's also a Monday maintenance day. That means backing up all of my files, very important. I will also, for the very first time, redo and reset the entire computer, reinstalling Logic, reinstalling Final Cut and everything else, reorganizing my samples, and this will take quite a while. So today won't be like the normal vlog following me around. It will be more like a tutorial advice video on compression. You asked for it, and I think it's a very important topic. Everyone should know as much about it as possible. So let's actually get right into it. So let's start off with the very basic of a compressor. That's what a compressor looks like as a plugin. That's what a real one looks like. The real one's extremely expensive. The plugins, you can get some of them for free. A lot of them come with your DAW. Especially Logic has a very good and very versatile compressor. And to explain in the most simplest way what a compressor actually does, it is just making things that are loud quiet. And that's it. That's really all a compressor is doing if you really narrow it down to the one and most important thing. Of course, with certain settings you can change the feel, you can add coloring and all these kind of things, but this video is more about the really basic stuff, and the most basic thing a compressor does is making things that are loud quiet. So next, of course, why do you actually need a compressor? Since it's making loud parts quiet, it's extremely handy to use it if you have audio material that has a high dynamic range. Having a lot of material in it that is very quiet and a lot of material that is extremely loud. To kind of make the high parts lower so that they're closer to the low parts and you get an audio file that is like more equal and nicer to listen to. For example, let's say you're watching TV. We all know that. You watch a movie and then the advertisement is starting and it's like twice as loud as the movie that you've been watching. On a side note, luckily in Germany there is now a law, I think even in the EU, that it's not allowed anymore. But they're still tricking to make it seem louder than it actually is. But I remember like 4 or 5 years ago, every time the advertisement started, I just had to lower the volume. And for these kind of scenarios, a compressor would be actually extremely handy. It would lower the louder volume of the ads. Another example, my vlogs that I do on a daily basis, they have a compressor on all of the audio material. For a very simple reason. Now I'm close to the microphone and the camera. And if I move to the back and speak in the same loudness, you will hear me a lot less. So to compensate for that, I have a compressor on top of all of the audio and a lot of other stuff to make it sound nice, but more on that maybe in a future vlog. Or I think I already made one about vocal editing and everything that has to do with making vocals sound nice. I've now opened up Final Cut, not Logic, just because Final Cut, for whatever reason, can luckily auto-update waveforms. Logic can't, so it's way easier to show you in Final Cut what it does to the audio. I've opened up a compressor. It doesn't really matter which one at the very beginning. And the most important thing to set on a compressor is the threshold. With it, you set the level at which the compressor will be active, and when it's active, it will reduce the volume of whatever is above that threshold. So for example, in that clip where I speak in front of the camera and in the back, I could just set the threshold in between those two clips so that everything that I set right in front of the camera, which is louder, gets reduced to the same amount as in the back. At the moment the threshold is set to 0 dB, so everything above 0 dB is affected. There shouldn't be anything above 0 dB, so it's doing absolutely nothing. Let's actually lower it to an extreme setting to really show you what it does, maybe like -30. For a very simple reason now. And now this compressor by iZotope is really handy because it shows you what it's doing to the audio signal. You can see the waveform, and the yellow graph is the compression whenever it lowers things. So you can see if there is something loud, it lowers it. Very simple reason. Now I'm close to the microphone and the camera. And as you can see, while I'm in the front talking to the camera, it's doing quite a lot. It's compressing quite hard. And if I move to the back and in the back, then it's doing way less. Same loudness, you will hear me a lot less. So that's the first part to compression. There are of course a lot more settings you should know about than just threshold. There is still ratio, makeup. We talked about that. That's just getting it loud again. Attack, release, and knee. It gets a little bit more complicated, but it should be easy to understand. But first, it's time to take care of the maintenance stuff. It should probably take me the entire day. Who doesn't love reinstalling all of their plugins? And then the worst part, usually half of it then doesn't work anymore. But anyways, it has to be done.
Keep coming around cause you interested. I am every dream that you ever had. I am your fantasy.
I'm back. Everything worked out. Logic is running. Not all of the plugins. Just actually none of the external third-party plugins. Just the Logic plugins. But anyways, that's all we will need to continue talking about compression. Let me change that to the Platinum Digital. Here at the very top of the Logic compressor, you have all different kinds of compressor emulated. They have different properties to them. I don't want to go into that because that's already very specific. Let's just stick to the Platinum Digital one. It has this really cool graph view that really shows you what's going on in the vocal. The black part is the audio waveform and the white is again the threshold of the compressor. And as you can see in the quiet part, it's going up, it's not doing anything. And whenever it detects volume, it lowers it to the threshold that is set to this lower part. So the low part not getting affected, the higher part getting affected, reduced to the same as the low part. So if I change the threshold, you can see how this white line is going up. It's doing less and less. If I reduce it again, it's doing a lot. It's going down. The makeup I think is pretty clear. It's just making it loud again. At the end, it's just the gain. You could also use the output gain. Although I think the makeup is going through the processing of the compressor. So if you have a vintage compressor, the gain of the compressor might have a different tone to it than just the output of the plugin. Attack and release is also quite simple to explain. Attack is how long it actually takes whenever the threshold is detecting an audio signal to actually lower it. So if you set the attack really long, whenever the compressor detects a signal, it needs a little bit of time to actually do the compression. So you can see it here when the loud part hits with the attack set to 0, it's going down immediately. And if I now set it to 200 milliseconds, you will see now the loud part is hitting and it takes a little bit. Just imagine you sitting in front of the TV again. Every time the advertisement comes, if you're really fast, that means a fast attack. So the advertisement starts, you hear it, it's too loud, you reduce it, that's a fast attack. If you're a slow person and it needs some time to find the remote controller, then you're kind of the slow attack person. And the release is basically the same instead of for the attack, for the beginning of the audio signal, for the end of the signal. So how long does it take until it goes back to normal? The ratio is actually setting how extreme it's doing all of this. So the higher the ratio, the crazier the compressor goes. Then this compressor has a couple more settings. You can use auto gain, so it's automatically doing like the gain boost at the end for you. You can set it to -12 dB, 0 dB, or just off. You also have in here a limiter. A limiter is actually just a really extreme setting of a compressor. So it's reducing everything immediately to the threshold. So that's what compression is doing. The threshold is setting the level where it gets reduced. Attack and release is taking care of the timing. The ratio makes everything just more extreme, and the makeup gain makes it loud again. Next up is when actually to use compression. And first I have to say compression is heavily overused by a lot of people, especially if you're one of those producers like me that is just mostly working in the box and isn't recording a whole lot. If you have a recording studio, recording bands, you will probably need a compressor on every single thing you record into your DAW. This has mainly to do with if you record a human playing the guitar, it's not perfect. Some notes are quieter, some are louder, and to make it nice and get like the dynamic range a little bit down to make it usable within a song with a lot of other instruments that also have their dynamics going on. It's way more controlled this way, and the compressor is just easier than drawing it yourself with automation. I personally use compression whenever I record vocals, quite heavily on vocals actually. If I record the acoustic guitar, I use it, the electronic guitar, I use it, but I don't use it on things that I already have in my computer. So for example, samples. If you're doing EDM music, those samples, they're cut out of other tracks that got compressed heavily, got mastered heavily, got compressed again, then sampled again, compressed again. So there is no dynamic. If you compress it again, it just makes it worse. So on almost all of my individual drum things, on all of the vocal sample packs things, you won't need the compression. It's already done for you a million times. You don't need to apply again compression. I then also add compression to my drum bus just to make all of the drums sound more equal and sounding together in one group. I usually do it with parallel compression, but that's an entirely new topic. I also like to use compression on my bass lines because I cut away the low end, and then you have like the higher notes sticking out more of the mix. And with the compression, I can like pull them back down again and making the bass sound more equal no matter what notes I'm playing. So you might have encountered this problem already. Bass notes like to jump around, especially like below 60 Hertz. You need to cut it to have the kick actually being present. And then, yeah, the higher notes just stick out. So you can lower them with a compressor. So that's pretty much already it for today. I will stay here probably a lot longer, just taking care of getting my plugins to work again. Let me know if this helped you and you now understood what compression is and what to use it for. And let me know what you're using compression for. There is, of course, a lot more to compressors, how to use them. There are specialized compressors, vintage emulating compressors with character, but there's just no way I can cover all of that in just one video. So I will do tomorrow another one about compression, more detailed, more advanced stuff. So don't forget to subscribe, enable notifications to not miss that video. Also coming up very soon, the next free sample download for you guys. And don't forget to be creative and maybe just try out what I showed you today. I think if you do it yourself, especially if you have like this graph function of the Logic compressor, or the one by Isotope also has it, and I'm sure there are other plugins that also do it. It's very easy to understand what compression does. If the graph shows it to you, it points out what it's doing. You can listen to it and you will actually have a less hard time hearing it if you can also see it at the same time, especially if you're a beginner and your ears aren't trained or your room isn't treated really, or your speakers are just not good enough. This will definitely help you. So tune in tomorrow again for the second part of compression, for me back to trying to get Logic to run again.
I'm the type that always got 2 phones.
Oh god, I don't know if you've ever reinstalled your computer. So annoying. I would much rather prefer just spending my time being creative, making music, but it's necessary and will hopefully help me in the future to be more efficient making music when everything runs smoothly.
I am flying, but all of them boys wrong. Nobody can touch me before I go ghost. I am original. Oh, baby, don't get too close. I'm gonna break your heart into 1,000 tiny pieces just for fun.